the first body was found standing, not leaning against a wall, not propped up by some cruel prankster, standing upright in the middle of the city square, with its eyes open, its skin perfectly intact, and an expression so calm it was as if death had simply paused inside the body and forgotten how to continue its work. By the time the call reached me, the city had already decided to forget the victim's name. The city itself was a ghost on the map, a forgotten place in the Turkish interior, erased from modern charts and memory. It lay nestled between two formidable mountain ranges, sealed off from the world by landslides and a thick, official silence. The locals, when they spoke of it at all, referred to it only as the place where burial fails. Even the road signs on the approach had been stripped clean, leaving stark metal poles pointing toward nothing. I arrived as a forensic anthropologist, under contract with the Ministry of Culture. My mission was to assess what they called anomalous preservation. That was the term they used: clinical, hollow, and deliberately insufficient. A term designed to hide a truth they couldn't face. At the checkpoint, they handed me keys to an empty municipal building and a satellite phone. Then they left, without so much as a goodbye. I was alone. The air inside the city felt wrong. It wasn't stale. It was held as if the entire city was holding its breath. Sound behaved strangely here. My footsteps echoed twice, once immediately a sharp crack on the stone, and then again, a breath later, softer, as if the stones themselves were whispering my presence back to me. There were no birds, no insects, not even the whisper of wind through the narrow, cobbled streets. Yet something moved. The buildings were from the Ottoman era. Their stone structures collapsed inward, as though time had pressed down from above instead of eroding from the sides. Doors stood open, beckoning to empty rooms. Furniture remained exactly where it had been left. Bowls were still set on tables, waiting for a meal that would never be served. It was clear that life here had not fled in a panic. It had simply stopped. Over the next 3 days, more bodies appeared. A woman, kneeling by a dried-up well, her hands still cupped as if to draw water. An old man, seated on a stone stairway, his hands folded politely in his lap. A child, lying in bed, their eyes shut, their chest unmoving, but, when I touched their skin, it was warm. There was no sign of decay, no rigor mortis, no discernible cause of death. And I soon noticed a chilling pattern. Every single corpse faced inward, toward the city's center, toward the old burial grounds. And none of them had been buried. On the 4th night, desperation drove me into the city's underbelly. Beneath the ruins of the old mosque, I found a cistern, its walls damp and cool. Etched into the stone was a fragment of script in Ottoman Turkish. It was a religious text, but it read like an apology. "Forgive us," it said. "We did not give them rest. We feared what would answer." The script revealed an ancient, forgotten belief. This city once held that the dead must be invited to leave the world of the living. That burial was not an act of disposal, but an act of permission, a sacred transaction. Their legends spoke of beings that dwelled beneath the earth, entities older than jinn, older than scripture, that were not drawn to souls, but to hesitation, to unresolved endings, to bodies that were not claimed by ritual. Centuries ago, during a harsh winter famine, the city had stopped burying its dead, and something had noticed. I never saw the entity. Not directly, but I began to feel its logic, its presence woven into the very fabric of the city. The ground beneath the cemetery sloped unnaturally, as if gravity itself was leaning inward, pulling everything toward a central point. The stones there were smooth, polished by centuries of hands that never finished their prayers. At night I started to hear breathing, not from above ground, but from deep below it. It was a slow, impossibly patient sound, and it was perfectly synchronized with the beat of my own heart. The entity wasn't moving. The city was moving around it. I finally discovered the horrifying truth while re-examining the first corpse I'd found, the man standing in the square. I placed my stethoscope against his chest, expecting silence. Instead, I heard it, a single, faint heartbeat, then another, a few minutes later, a slow, rhythmic pulse, as if it were waiting for an instruction. The dead were not preserved. They were paused. Sleep abandoned me after that. When I managed to close my eyes, I didn't find rest. I dreamed of being awake inside my own body, fully conscious but unable to move, unable to signal that I was finished living. I dreamed of being watched by something that did not understand death-only interruption. I started to notice more patterns. The dead all faced the burial grounds, and I, the only living soul, was walking toward it. Every night, my steps took me closer without any conscious decision. Every morning I would wake to find my camp nearer to the cemetery gates. The city was guiding me, not with malice but with expectancy. That's when I understood the entity didn't kill. It waited. It was waiting for someone to complete the ritual that had been abandoned all those centuries ago. It was waiting for someone to bury not just the bodies but the city itself. Beneath the cemetery, I found it. A cavern, not carved by tools, but formed by some ancient agreement. The walls were etched with the imprints of thousands of palms. Bones were stacked carefully, respectfully, along the edges. And in the center stood an altar of smooth, dark stone. It bore no symbols, only shallow depressions, perfectly shaped like human spines. This was not a place of sacrifice. It was a place of transfer. The city had once offered its dead willingly, a continuous rhythm of life and release. But fear had disrupted that rhythm. Hesitation had replaced ritual. The entity below did not punish this failure. It simply preserved. It held everything in stasis, waiting for continuity to be restored, waiting for someone to remember how endings worked. I finally understood what it wanted from me. It wanted a witness, a caretaker, someone to remain suspended between states, someone who would never be buried. 2 weeks later, a recovery team found my audio recorder near the cemetery gates. It contained this account. Up to this point, my body was never recovered, and after my disappearance, no further corpses appeared in the city. Satellite images now show the city slowly collapsing inward, the streets sinking and buildings folding as if they are being gently laid to rest. The entire site is now permanently sealed, unmarked, a blank spot on the map once more. But sometimes, during the quietest nights, seismic instruments in the region register a faint pulse from deep beneath the earth. One beat every few minutes, steady, patient, as if something is still there, still waiting. If you ever find a place where the dead do not rot, leave, not because it is cursed but because it is unfinished, and it will ask you to stay until it remembers how to let go.